compares very poorly with the national average of 8.1%. It also continues a trend of rising very rapidly and sharply over the last 8 months. In June, this is a hard number to fathom, but in June, the unemployment rate in Oregon was only 5.9% versus 10.8% now. And for the Tri-County area, the numbers just came out yesterday. The bad news continues. Clackamas is at 9.7%, Multnomah is at 10%, and Washington County at 8.7%. And all of those are plus or minus about a full point higher than just 1 month ago. So the unemployment number is the headline, but our payroll taxes depend on actual employment and wages, and what we're seeing there is also very negative. The loss of jobs in February alone in Oregon was about 22,000, and that's the largest one-month loss in jobs since the state began keeping records in 1977. And that's repeated in each of the 3 counties as well. In the Tri-County area, since last year, we're down almost 30,000 jobs. So all these numbers, and the decline in employment over the last 3 or 4 months has been about 3% actual people employed in the Tri-County area. And the State Office of Economic Analysis forecasts a decline statewide of 4% through year end. So all these numbers, it's a very bleak picture. It's hard for the labor force. It's great hardship for families, stress on public budgets, social services, and now we'll get to just how this ties in for us. And I mean, we've already talked about our payroll tax being 55% of our revenues, and what we've seen so far, because as we've discussed, there's a lag between when we actually receive dollars from the payroll tax, and so we're receiving them now for last quarter. Those, our actual cash receipts are down over 2% for October, November, December, and that includes the impact of the scheduled tax increase that went into place. So as Fred mentioned, the next date we'll see the incoming for this current quarter will be in May, and we don't have expectations that the trend is going to be any different, and we're hoping it doesn't accelerate too much. I'll turn to a review, unless there's any questions about the economic situation, I'll turn to a review of our February financials, which you have, where these trends show up, although on a lagged basis. If you look at the operating statement, you'll see lower revenues and lower expenses. Lower revenues primarily because of tax receipts. The areas where expenses are lower than budget include a couple of things that stand out. The lower cost of the accessible transportation programs and bus transportation, and that's due primarily to lower than budgeted fuel costs, as Fred was mentioning. We also have lower than budgeted costs of the West Commuter Rail over the course of the year. That's because we opened later than expected. And we have lower than anticipated costs of rail equipment maintenance and lower maintenance due primarily to lower costs of materials and services. So those are sort of the big variances that result in lower expenses that are offsetting some of our lower revenues for fiscal year 2009. We've talked about looking forward to what we're doing for the fiscal year 2010 budget. I'd like to touch on a resolution that's going to come to your attention later in the meeting, which is about a line of credit. We are going to be asking for your authority to enter into a line of credit with a local bank, Wells Fargo, to allow us to draw on the line of credit in advance of when we go out to bond for our capital projects, and also to have the letter in place as a backup liquidity to provide cash flow working capital for us should our revenues decline even faster than what we're forecasting and faster than we're able to make the cuts. Our anticipation is that we will use it as to borrow in advance of our capital needs and in advance of the bond issue that we'll be coming back to you with in the fall. We think it's important, as Warren Buffett has said, in times of stress, it's important to maintain a modest debt burden and liquidity. And we think TriMet does have a modest debt burden, and we just want to be safe and make sure that we have all the liquidity that we need. And finally, I will conclude my report with a look at our investment portfolio, which, as always, remains invested in short, very liquid, high-quality investments. 98% of our investments are in treasuries, agencies, or the state of Oregon's local government investment pool. And this is pretty much unchanged from our past and consistent with our goals of maintaining high quality and liquid investments. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions for Beth? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Resolution 090323, authorizing the establishment of a trust to provide health coverage. Mr. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President and board members. One of the issues that is facing all public entities, certainly those in particular who provide what are called post-employment benefits, are facing issues around a new requirement of the Government Accounting Standards Board, which is to be able to provide for a full expression of what those post-employment benefit obligations are. TriMet has, as most other entities, have always paid these really on a cash basis. That is, as an obligation comes forward, we pay it, whether it's for health care or other items. Pension is different. Pensions have obviously been established as a trust responsibility. This is much more important within the private sector, but certainly the ability to be able to establish trusts where there are set obligations to be able to fund those trusts, to be able to move it forward so that those obligations are there. On the healthcare side, in which we do provide post-employment healthcare to management or to all employees, both per our union contract as well as per our management commitment to non-union employees. What is here is to be able to make changes to that in several important regards. Number one is that it establishes actually Brian, am I saying it correct? It's a trust? Trust. Other post-employment benefit trust, which allows us to be able to place in that dollars, principally dollars that would be coming as a result of employees who are in fact incurring obligations, and we are incurring obligations on their behalf. We're federally funded by grants that we will in fact so charge those grants to be able to reflect that in a post-employment benefit and to be able to deposit into that account. We, at TriMet's discretion, have the ability to deposit more dollars if we so choose. Clearly, this economic time is not one of those times we would so choose. In addition, it provides for modifications in two other important regards for the non-union employees. The union employees are controlled, again, by our collective bargaining agreement. But for non-union employees, we will first make it very clear that any changes that occur, and they do occur occasionally within the active employee ranks for what coverage there is, we sometimes will, in fact, as time goes on, move up the amount of deductible or the amount of copay or various other elements. What this says is that all current employees who are eligible for that post-employment benefit will receive and will be expected to be able to conform to whatever active employees have. So if the deductible amount goes up on active employees, that same deductible amount will go up for retirees who are subject to the non-union program.